Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 697th edition of the Feuerstein's Fire American Soccer Show. I'm your host, Daniel Feuerstein. I'll give you American perspective of our clubs, leagues, players, national team, and other fabulous moments. Get your daily reading from me and other writers over at Beyond the 90, Substack.com, and locally at baddogsports.com. Chat room is open over on YouTube. Come on in, discuss amongst yourselves if you like, and I'll try to give you my opinion, and of course, everything that I believe in American soccer at the best of my abilities. As we go ahead and prepare to talk about tonight's episode, which is, of course, the North Carolina FC debacle. Just waiting for my colleague, Kartik Krishnaiyer, to join me tonight. Until then, something just popped up real quick. I'll be right back. Just give me one moment, please, and I will be right with you. Apologies about this, but I'll be right back. Hello, everybody. I'm glad to be back with you now. I apologize about that. Sometimes these things happen. I get a little bit of information that I have to attend to, and I don't like this as much as you do. I really apologize about this. It's not good on the show, and I know it's not good for the audience. And I'm very sorry about that, but uh, certain things sometimes are out of my control, and I have to attend to these things, and it's really very frustrating on my end of things. Of course, I'm frustrated just as much as you are. So I try my best not to inconvenience you, but once again, it's a situation where, look, when something comes up, I have to go and take care of it. I don't want to do it, but that's what it is. And all I can tell you all is this: um, is that when we talk about our game in this country, and many people will say that we are in a healthy state. And when we're in a healthy state, then everything works together. Everything is good. But when it's not in a healthy state, our game, then the problem is that there are certain things that are in flux that worries me of the support of the sport, not so much fan support, but the support, I would say maybe the financial health of some of these clubs that are trying to be a part of the professional landscape of American soccer. Now, obviously, Major League Soccer is in a situation where they must, or they not so much must, but they're doing everything they can not to fall victims of past soccer leagues many, many years ago. And, United Soccer Leagues are trying to do that as well. But what I can say is that when you have these clubs below MLS, and we're talking about, of course, the United Soccer Leagues with their Championship League, the USL League One and USL League Two, they're trying to find their proper positioning in their table, and they are trying their best to be in a better situation and to keep growing and to be strong and to be just as good as what MLS does. But once again, when you see these clubs shutting themselves down, instead of finding ways to remain alive, putting themselves in a better position, and doing everything that should be possibly done, then, what are we doing here? And the state of North Carolina FC and what they are doing, very simply put, is wrong. I don't understand why North Carolina FC cannot remain for these next 2 seasons to remain in USL Championship so that they are going to move forward to be part of USL First Division. Now, if there are certain aspects that I'm not privy to, which I'll admit I'm not, then we're going to find out tonight when my colleague Kartik Krishnaiyer joins us and talks about this situation. But one thing is for sure, folks, is that North Carolina FC has thrown a serious monkey wrench into this situation, blindsiding not only their supporters, but the entire USL Championship League. And not just the Championship League, but for USL League One, and even some of these teams that are not part of the soon-to-be promotion relegation situation with USL in League Two, but many people are scratching their heads and wondering what in the hell is going on here. Why is North Carolina FC bailing out between now and to the beginning of the brand new, soon to be brand new USL First Division League? It's a question I have as well. And once again, many people will continue on to say there's a problem in the lower levels. There's too much infighting. There's too much squabbles. There's too much not enough success. And North Carolina FC right now in the USL Championship playoffs have been eliminated by Rhode Island FC. Their road is done. And now officially they're done until they make this move to USL First Division when it opens. Look, I understand, completely understand. They view themselves as a First Division club. That's always been the goal for owner Steve Malik. He views his club to be a First Division club. When he agreed to sign off to bring in promotion and relegation, he needs to have the full understanding that once that's implemented and activated, and they do get relegated back to Championship League, they cannot cry foul. They cannot and should not put themselves in the position to assume they deserve to remain in First Division forever and ever and ever. And then we're going to see what that club is truly made of. This is what USL signed up for. This is what they wanted. This is what they are looking for. And honestly, they have nobody else to look at but themselves right now, because they will be and will have promotion relegation within themselves. Pro rel in a closed league system. But once again, this is the only thing they can do. And this is the only thing they're able to do right now. Shut their doors, temporarily they claim, for 2 seasons. Will they be looking for a new owner? Will Malik sell? I don't know. Or is he truly just going to shut them down, look for some space to build a brand new stadium and leave First Horizon Stadium in Wake Med Soccer Park and move over to Raleigh? Do I know what's going on? No, I don't know what's going on. I'm just as shocked and surprised as most of you are. But when we get ready to talk, we get ready to discuss these issues that have popped up out of the blue, out of nowhere, we're definitely going to find out what the situation is and why all of a sudden Steve Malik has decided to blindside not just his own supporters, but everyone across the board at USL Championship, USL Soccer HQ, and of course those pundits that covers and calls the games for USL on both CBS Sports and ESPN. But I will say this, folks. There is a lot of questions that need to be answered. And I, for one, am not happy that Steve Malik has gone this route. I wish he would just turn around, say, I changed my mind. We will bring the club back, remain in the USL Championship League for these 2 seasons, and then we will make the move to USL First Division. Until then, we have a lot of questions. Hopefully we'll get some answers. And as we ready to give you those answers, joining me right now, my good friend over at Beyond the 90. This gentleman, of course, has been through everything and anything in American soccer, covering South Florida, the USL, MLS, US Soccer, and everything but the kitchen sink. Hopefully we'll add that on tonight. Kartik Krishnaiyer, my colleague at Beyond the 90, joining me tonight. Kartik, welcome back.
Yeah, I apologize. Apologize to the viewers. My internet went out, so
I was
frantically trying to get on a hotspot, and now the internet came back, so it's working. So
that's working. I'm glad to hear that. Kartik, when the news broke about North Carolina FC deciding to end operations temporarily, they say, so they can make the move to USL First Division when it pops up in 2028. Did that make you angry and upset and just question the whole situation that we have of this club right now?
Yeah, and it's kind of a very par for the course for Mr. Malik. This is the sort of thing, Daniel, we've seen him pull before, and I understand he had some leverage with the league in terms of when NASL collapsed and he was the team. And when he moved North Carolina FC over in 2017, he was actually the move that collapsed the NASL. Tampa Bay and Ottawa moving the previous year had not collapsed the NASL. That had just made the NASL much weaker and given USL co-D2 status. So my understanding is when he came into USL, he got these sorts of concessions, which were you can self-relegate, you can come back to D2 within a period of time. There were certain cost waivers. He didn't pay the full price to get in. He didn't have to pay the full price to come back. And he had a set number of years on his franchise agreement, which expired in 2025. It was from what I understand, an 8-year agreement that he signed with USL. This is year 8. Now, that having been said, I am told both the league and all of the players were caught off guard. And under the USL CBA, those players are now free agents. I know some teams, I'll name one, Tampa Bay, has been very aggressive in already pursuing. They've got a list, they've got a board of North Carolina guys. I think that'll be the case with some of the other teams as well. But there's a lot to unpack, because I do not believe, I heard your comments just a few minutes ago, I do not believe this team will be coming back.
So you think this is it? This is the end of North Carolina FC?
Yes. Now, I do think USL would like to be in the Raleigh-Durham market. I mean, when I worked at NASL, obviously, this was a market we were committed to. We let St. Louis fold. We let Baltimore fold. We ultimately would have let Atlanta fold also, if it came down to Atlanta and Raleigh-Durham. I mean, it is a prime soccer market, and USL will want to be in that market. I just don't think they're going to do business with Steve Malik again. Now, if Malik were to sell North Carolina FC, that would be different. But I know, in fairness to Steve Malik, he has been able to take on additional investors with the Courage, with the women's team.
Mm-hmm.
And he's done quite well with that. He's gotten, including Capital Broadcasting, who owns WRAL, and some other media entities in North Carolina. So he's been able to bring in strategic investors for the Courage. But those investors have not been interested in the men's side. Now, in a potential First Division League, maybe they would be. But I think USL feels like they've been burned by Malik one time too many. They weren't happy about the relegation. That was in the contract, in the franchise agreement, so they had to honor it. But they were not happy he did that. They felt it devalued. So basically, Stu Sternberg, who we've spent a lot of time talking about, right, bought the Tampa Bay Rowdies in 2019 for a great price. You know, a price that not a discount price, a price that firmly affixed USL as, okay, our clubs are not worth $1 or $2 million. They're worth 5 figures, right? Or 7. How many figures? 8 figures. They're worth 8 figures. Then months later, North Carolina FC says we're self-relegating, which then assigns the value of a championship club to $1 million, which is what clubs are paying to join. We're paying to join League One at the time. So Sternberg buys the Rowdies for, I don't want to say the sale price, but it was 8 figures. It was, in excess of, I'll just say in excess of 20 million. And then Malik turns around and says, okay, well, my franchise is really only worth $1 million. So it undercut USL at that moment and their ability to sell franchises at full value. So then that finally passes. That crisis passes, and he comes back up, fields a second division team for 2 years, a very good one this season. John Bradford did a great job with that team. The confusing thing, Daniel, is they reinforced the squad over the summer. They made a number of signings in July and August, and then just to fold the team in November. Crazy.
It's crazy. I'm going to ask you this question. You answer it, but I have to pop out real quick. Again, I got some information coming to my way. But still, though, let me ask you this. What's your sense from the supporters of North Carolina FC? And if you've heard from our former colleague Neil Morris about this whole situation?
I have. I have spoken to Neil. I have spoken to others around the North Carolina FC community. I've spoken to several former players. Remember, as the former communications director of the NASL, I knew a lot of the players who played for NCFC in that period of time, Daniel. And so what they've communicated to me is a certain degree of confusion. And those players have told me that they feel very, very strongly that Steve Malik was in it for the right reasons, but the balance, right, of having to maintain a first division women's side that's playing at a very high level. The NC Courage are a big club. They're a big club globally. Now they're out of the playoffs this year, but they're a big club globally in the women's soccer scene. Maintaining that alongside this lower divisions men's club became too much. North Carolina FC, between the Railhawks and North Carolina FC, you're talking about 19 seasons in the second division of Americans. Well, okay, they spent a couple seasons in the third division, but 19 seasons between D2 and D3 in American soccer. And unfortunately, we see this pattern over and over again with lower division clubs, guys, where they start very hot. I remember how much money the original ownership group, Frank DeRoss, Chris Economides, Steve Donner, and their partners were partners with Selby Wellman and company, put into that club. 2007, 2008, 2009, they make a great Open Cup run in their very first season, the Railhawks did. And then you get to 2010 or 2009, Selby Wellman is basically the vast majority owner. They're pumping lots of money into the club. And then they run into money problems at the end of 2010. They make it all the way to the finals of the USSF Division II, but then they run into money problems. And those money problems forced us in a bad position. I was the comms director for the NASL at the time. We lost our sanctioning for a couple of weeks. USSF pulled our sanctioning because of the poor financial and fiscal health of the Carolina Railhawks. We get our sanctioning back only provisionally at the USSF AGM. We have to sit out the Open Cup because of that situation. Traffic Sports comes in. They have to run the team for a number of years. Now, they were the owners of Fort Lauderdale, but Fort Lauderdale seemed to be a more attractive team to sell, so they were able to sell Fort Lauderdale. But they were not able to sell North Carolina or Carolina at the time. And then the FIFA scandal hits. They have to unload the club. And ultimately, what happens is that they strike out with a number of heavy hitter owners, right? They go for big names. They can't get it. And they get Steve Malik, who has millions, but he doesn't have billions. And Malik saves the club in late 2015. But then when you get to 2016 and U.S. Soccer is running into trouble with the Western New York Flash up in Rochester, Steve Malik sees the opportunity to bring the club to the Raleigh-Durham area, marry them to the Railhawks, and create some synergies there. And ultimately, the relocation of the Western New York Flash gave Malik a cachet within U.S. Soccer. He had done a solid for NWSL, and he had done a solid for Sunil Gulati, the president of U.S. Soccer, because he had he had saved this franchise that had just won title in Rochester. Brought them to North Carolina, and they were a dominant team the first few years under Paul Riley. We don't need to get into Paul Riley, right? We know what happened with him, and we know what all about the scandals in NWSL. But the point is, Malik at that point had to balance a bunch of things. He was effectively serving as the leading owner in the NASL after Tampa Bay and Ottawa left the league, and Tampa Bay's ownership had been funding Fort Lauderdale. So the efforts of Malik and others to find a new owner for Fort Lauderdale failed. They couldn't find a new owner for Jacksonville. Jacksonville had to be taken over by the league. And then the New York Cosmos almost went under. This is often forgotten. Seamus O'Brien Company had bankrupted the team. They were relying on Ricardo Silva, the owner of Miami FC, to fund them. Joe Baroni, our late friend, mutual friend of ours, Daniel, says, hey, I know Rocco Camiso. He brings Rocco Camiso in, saves the Cosmos, and along with Malik's leadership, they save NASL collectively. But then Malik and Camiso clash, as played out on your show, Daniel, many years ago, when came on and shared his opinions of Steve Malik. Malik at this time begins to play the field. He's positioning himself with Sunil Gulati. He's done a solid for Sunil, saving Western New York, relocating the team, and he's playing footsie with USL. So he gets himself a seat on the board of US Soccer, and he can't juggle all this stuff. They launch an expansion bid. That's when they rebrand the team North Carolina FC in MLS expansion bid. And Malik, it has been conveyed to me by a former player at the Railhawks or at North Carolina FC, that when Charlotte got awarded an MLS team and Malik didn't see that coming, they felt they had done all the things they needed to do. They felt they had the better market. I would argue, Charlotte has proven itself now, but I would have argued at the time that Raleigh-Durham was a better market than Charlotte. The Triangle was a better market than Charlotte for soccer. Better soccer history, better soccer infrastructure. That's when Malik really became jaded. Even though he'd been on the U.S. Soccer Board, some of his conflicts caught up with him, the whole tug of war with Rocco, and that MLS who he had played nice with, he didn't see that coming, right? There was a process for MLS expansion, and there 14 cities applied, Indianapolis, other USL clubs applied, or NASL clubs that became USL clubs, Tampa Bay, Indy, and Raleigh-Durham and the Railhawks, and then some of the USL teams, Phoenix Rising. It wasn't a process, okay? Austin got a team without ever applying, and we know why. Nashville was awarded a team in advance of, even though they had applied, they were awarded a team. And then somehow Miami was awarded a team without being part of that process. Now, we know why they got a team. And then Charlotte wasn't really part of the process either. So Malik became very jaded about the whole thing within MLS and U.S. Soccer. He still had the courage. He had to operate North Carolina FC, but to what end, he thought? I'm not getting into MLS. They screwed me. They're not putting a team in Raleigh-Durham right after they put a team in Charlotte. And we applied. We went about it the right way. And they gave Charlotte a team because Tom Glick got David Tepper involved. David Tepper, sorry. And that's all MLS needs to see. Oh, yeah, Tepper, he's a billionaire. We're giving him a team to play in a football stadium. Now, Raleigh was told they had to build a soccer stadium. And Malik was trying to finance that or trying to figure out how to get, he had a great relationship with, I don't want to get into politics here, but the governor at the time in North Carolina was Roy Cooper. Malik was a leading fundraiser for him. So he had a great relationship with the state government. So he thinks, okay, I can get this done, this stadium project. The same thing he's now bringing back onto the table. And it didn't matter because they were going to give Charlotte a team and let them play in an NFL stadium. So I know earlier I was saying very negative things maybe from a perception standpoint about Steve Malik, and I don't think anyone wants him back. But I just gave the explanation for why I feel like he did try and do some of the right things. He saved the Flash. He wanted to build a stadium in Raleigh. He went about the process the right way in terms of MLS expansion, and he got burnt. So, it's a mixed bag, but I don't think he'll be back. I think what's going to happen is maybe he'll be back as a minority owner. But if they can't get the stadium built in Raleigh, and I'll tell you, this is the pity. Wake Med Soccer Park is a great facility, Daniel, but it is not. It is just it harkens back to the era when we built stadiums way out in the hinterland. And now there's a regentrification going on in urban areas. And the idea is to build stadiums in cool places and accessible places and places with foot traffic. And I have to tell you, as NASL communications director, I went to Raleigh maybe 7 or 8 times, or Cary 7 or 8 times. I say Raleigh, but that's the point. You stay in Raleigh, and getting to Cary is a pain in the you know what.
Of course.
Like getting to Frisco in Dallas, right? It's similar. So, and if they played in Durham or Chapel Hill, that would be a lot cooler because you'd get foot traffic, you'd get college kids. They didn't have that at WakeMed, so they were always limited by WakeMed, and you had the cannibalization of the two clubs. One's a D1 women's club, one's a D2 men's club. What's going to draw the D1 women's club, obviously. So, yeah, and Alex is right. Raleigh is completely different today than when they built that stadium. And so my experience was I would stay in Raleigh at the team hotel, actually, and it would be a hike to get from the team hotel to WakeMed. Even if you stayed in the town of Cary, it was kind of it's just totally different, and it would be cool to have a stadium in Raleigh. So that's where I defend Malik. I have a lot of negative things I've said about him. There's good and bad, but I think he wanted to build a stadium in Raleigh, and could not get that done because Charlotte was given an MLS team without having to build a stadium, which goes back to your pet peeve for 15 years, Daniel, or since Seattle got let into MLS without having a stadium, right? It was since that one. So what?
Exactly.
That there are these teams that are connected to NFL teams or Major League Baseball teams, right? The Yankees that are given that are allowed into MLS without building a soccer specific stadium. There are other clubs that are required to build. So there's a clear double standard, and that's, I think, Malik. A lot of his eccentric behavior since 2019 has been, put aside the whole Rocco Camiso thing, has been a reaction to Charlotte getting an MLS team.
And not to go off point here, but in recent articles I read yesterday, the Vancouver Whitecaps don't have a place to play at the end of this season.
Right, correct.
They are out of BC Place. And Don Garber comes, you interview Don Garber, goes, I blame myself for not paying attention to the Whitecaps' needs. Yeah, we know it's his fault because did they expect the Whitecaps to be all of a sudden this good? Of course he doesn't think that because he only concentrates on the teams that are supposed to be the special ones.
And I think that I'll tell you, it's even more sinister than that, Daniel. They thought they could relocate the Whitecaps.
Exactly.
Potentially to Indianapolis to put Indy 11 out of business.
Yep.
And now it's very difficult to do that, given the surge of popularity. Vancouver's a World Cup host city, among other things. So I think that there's keep an eye on Montreal also, because I think that there's this thinking that they could move either Vancouver or Montreal into the U.S. to try and take out and Indianapolis specifically. That would be the market specifically they're trying.
I don't see Montreal leaving, to be honest with you. I don't see Montreal moving out of Canada. I think the Saputos would have to sell.
Yeah, no, that would be what it would be. Yeah.
That's the only way that would happen is if the Saputos.
Mr. Saputo is not going to take his team to out of Montreal, but I think now obviously I know the Saputos from, again, working in NASL, and I think they're kind of over MLS at this point. It's been very difficult for them to get sponsorships locally. It's not they compete. He owns obviously a club in Italy now, Bologna. So it's been very difficult for them to get local sponsorships, maintain local interest. The language thing is a bit of a problem, honestly. They can't get the kind of TV deal Toronto can get, teams in Toronto or even teams in Ottawa can get, quite honestly. So that's part of the problem. I mean, they're in a kind of niche French language city, but I mean, as this ties all back to North Carolina FC, I don't want to defend what he did in 2017, which was play the field, try to be political about things, get himself a seat on the USSF board, where, by the way, he replaced Alec Papadakis. But the thing that I do sympathize with him is that I know kind of his attitude took a turn for the worse when Charlotte got led into MLS without building a stadium. It's not that Charlotte got in over Raleigh-Durham. Maybe you could make the business case for that. It's that they didn't have to build a stadium, and his bid, he was told, was a non-starter until he got a stadium built. So, as someone who worked in that organization for many years, who is no longer in that organization, I may be giving it away here, but that person told me, and it's a person I used to work with. So, but that person told me, look, we could have just submitted a bid to play on NC State's campus then, at Carter Finley Stadium, if that was the way they were going to treat Charlotte. He was kind of saying this in jest to me, but that was their anger, was about Charlotte getting let in without building a stadium. And there's no plan to build a stadium in Charlotte, correct?
As far as I know, I don't think so. I mean, I know he built a training facility, but I don't see them building. I mean, look, I think I don't know where in downtown Charlotte you can build a soccer-specific stadium, but I mean, if you want to strike a deal with the rail yard that's east of downtown Charlotte, and you can get there through the light rail system that's along there. I mean, I think it's called the CAT.
The CAT.
You could do that. The track does go all the way into the where the railroad is, for the industrial trains. There's the Amtrak train station that's over there. You could, if he wanted to, he could build a stadium over there. And you're still within, striking distance into Charlotte territory in the city limits, just in the industrial section of the railroad yards. You could do something like that.
But the point is they have no intention to do so, right? The point is that if it's an NFL owner, MLS lets them get away with this.
Right, exactly. And that's the shame of it. I mean, at least the Crafts are trying to get a stadium for the Revolution. It's just, it's a temporary position to be in Foxborough. I think they should, the Crafts want to build their own stadium. And now they have a problem because the mayor of Everett, who gave them the green light to get a stadium built over there, they just have to go through everything through Boston, which for God knows why they got to go through Boston, since they're on the other side of the river of Boston. They shouldn't have to get permission from Boston for building something or anything over there. And now the mayor just got voted out for a new mayor, and every Revolution supporter is scared and upset that they may lose the bid now for the Crafts to build that stadium.
Yeah, I mean, this is what we went through in the District of Columbia every time there was a change in political leadership in terms of DC United getting their stadium done. And it took years. And the politicians in Washington, D.C. prioritized the Washington Nationals, a baseball team with no history, kind of an invented team, right? It was Montreal being relocated, but still an invented team. When DC United had won however many trophies, sorry, I hate to tell you this as a Metro Stars fan, but they'd won 12 trophies or whatever by that point.
I'm a historian. What do you want me to do?
Yeah. And so, I mean, I found I was put out by it because I said, okay, I'm not in favor of taxpayer funding of sports facilities, but if you're going to fund one, why not fund the club that has actually won all these trophies and is in the global game in the nation's capital? I mean, it was, and finally Audi Field got built, but got built 10 years after it should have been, is my point. So MLS has been through that. And in USL, we're seeing the desire now to connect any expansion team to some sort of real estate play. So that's good in that it builds you soccer-specific stadiums, but it's bad in that it feels like there's a lot of land speculation and land development going on being connected to potential USL clubs.
Yes.
And so I don't know that Malik necessarily played that game the way USL wants it played. There's a very specific place in Raleigh he wants potentially the stadium. Very specific part of Raleigh, he's wanted the stadium, and he's seen it more as a soccer project, to his credit. Now maybe with the direction USL's in, maybe he can get back into the league or with partners, because I think the league feels burnt by him at this point. by connecting it to some other project. Now, there are people who are Railhawks fans or now North Carolina FC who have always told me they felt like if the team were in the Durham Chapel Hill area, they would do better. I'm not sure I agree with that, but I understand that the distances are so great there that it's almost like you have to pick one or the other. You have to be a Raleigh team or you have to be a Durham Chapel Hill team. And maybe USL, having been burnt in Raleigh Cary now, looks at Durham Chapel Hill.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you're going to have to do something here because 2 years without a professional club in that region is just asinine after all the years they've had something over there. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not poo-pooing the Courage. They've done a great job in the women's game for the NWSL. Obviously, I'm happy for them and they're doing well. But look, something has to give and give more boost to the men's team. Something has to give.
They've always had a team there. Like I've said, this team, I gave the history while you stepped out. This team started in 2007. Steve Donner, Chris Economides, who I think you and I both know, and Frank DeRoss, who had been an owner in Rochester. They were all involved with bringing soccer back there, men's professional soccer. The Carolina Dynamo had lasted in the professional ranks till 2004, 2005, and then relegated to PDL. So they've always had a team, is my point. Yeah. There was like 1 year they didn't have a team in either D2 or D3. Going back to the mid-90s, you have some of the best men's college soccer programs in the country, best supported men's college soccer programs in the country in that region. And obviously, women's college soccer speaks for itself with UNC in particular. So it's really a horrible place to not have a professional men's team. Yeah, and I hope it gets done. I hope there's a chance for them to be in the D1 league. It felt like it would be an anchor market now that MLS is not going to go in there. And this is what USL has to do. They have to go into markets that are not going to be MLS markets, but are D1 ready. So I think Jacksonville's one of those. I think Pittsburgh's one of those. Now,
Louisville.
Which one?
Louisville's
one of those. Now, they also need to pick fights with MLS in places MLS is underperforming. So I am hearing again a lot about Chicago potentially. And now that the Fire are done, or they've been done for a few years in Bridgeview, that USL would be foolish if they don't find an investment group to go into Bridgeview, make a deal with the city,
exactly,
and take over that complex, and that you would regain the fan base on the south side, and in places like Naperville that have been disenfranchised by the Fire moving back into the city, and now apparently being a north side team.
With
exactly. So that's so look for that also. But I can't. I didn't contemplate this league without Raleigh Durham. So I mean they're one down if they don't have a team there, and they need to get to 12 or 14 before launching. I don't think they can launch with 10 teams.
No, I don't think so. They're going to have to at least make it 12.
Yeah,
I think I made it clear in my mock Open Cup articles. They have to have at least 12 clubs in USL First Division to really push it forward, because 10 is not going to be enough. They're going to have to really push it forward with at least 12, 3 per region.
Yeah.
But, let me ask you, though, do you know or are more familiar with not so much the territory land-wise of Raleigh, but the territory of those who are the most wealthy, the most profitable businesses, whoever wants to dabble into professional sports or own or be part of a professional soccer team, professional football team? Since, look, unless you're in Charlotte, then there's nothing else to do. Unless you're near a college, a university, then there's nothing else to do. If you're a minor league side or a lower division side, obviously, you have to hope and pray that there'll be somebody that wants to, take a chance and say, yes, we want to be a part of this First Division League and United Soccer Leagues. We want to give this an opportunity. We want to give it a shot, and we're going to be sticking with it. Have you heard of anything like that, or anybody that wants to dive
Yeah,
into that?
no, there were people who were interested in Malik's bid for MLS. So there are a number of tech companies in the Triangle area. One of the tech companies, their chairman, I'm ranking out on his name, their founder, he's a billionaire. He was going to get involved in Malik's bid and also the stadium. Capital Broadcasting, when I mentioned earlier, Jim Goodman and his outfit, they were going to get involved in that bid. Now they've gotten involved in the Courage. They've invested in the Courage. So maybe now they've lost their interest in men's professional soccer. I think that there's there is a rivalry within the state of North Carolina, and I don't think the business leaders in the Triangle were thrilled about Charlotte getting a team. Under the circumstances, they got it. So, and I'll admit, I never took Charlotte's bid seriously. There were people who told me, "Oh, Charlotte will absolutely get a team," and I thought, "Come on, they're not even going to build a stadium. Haven't we said that any new entry has to build a stadium?" Well, they didn't have to. Atlanta didn't have to. And WSL's not going to be in that stadium in Atlanta.
Yep. Yeah.
So the rules are different for different people.
I know.
So the question is now: do you get local investors, or is there someone you can bring from outside? I don't think USL has had a good track record of bringing investors from outside of markets and having them invest locally in a place that they're not familiar with. They've tried it in a couple of cases. It hasn't always worked out. So that's the question. And then you have to remember there's a very well-funded MLS Next Pro team down the road in High Point, the Carolina Core, who they're a very impressive setup. And they have some really high-end people, Evan Mitz, Andy Smith, Eddie Pope, who are in the organization. But to what end? The MLS Next Pro product is not selling will not sell in a market like Raleigh-Durham. It just won't. Now, I've already been told this about Jacksonville. The Armada they've got new ownership. They're pushing ahead with MLS Next Pro. That in major league sports towns, even if they're second tier major league sports towns like the Triangle, like Jacksonville, like Indy, you can't bring in a team that plays the Atlanta United Reserves or the Orlando City B and expect the sort of enthusiasm for the product that you would get in a truly independent league, league with independent clubs. So that's the thing. So I think it's going to have to be USL Division I for the Raleigh-Durham area, and will someone step up? That's really the question.
And now, once again, it's about who gets the expressway of entering a league, and if you build a stadium or not, and who gets the local. Because if you get the local, you'll get railroaded, and that's the truth.
Yeah.
And once again, it's like, this is why I get upset. And listen, I want everyone to understand this. We all want every single league in the United States to be healthy and competitive and strong. The stronger the leagues we have, the better our national team is, period. But when you continue the season, I'll still say it, we're still in the soccer wars, Kartik. No matter what we do, no matter what we write about, no matter what we see. One day we think everything is copacetic. The next minute, somebody gets screwed. Whether it be by USL, by MLS, by NISA, by NPSL, by UPSL, whoever it is. And who gets hurt the most? Us. Supporters, media, people who work at the stadiums, and the players who are trying to better their careers.
Yeah, and we have a situation now in the Dallas market where in USL League One, there was a particularly toxic involvement in the. I don't want to get too deep into the Texoma situation, but basically, there have been 2 moves made in the last week to try and rid that club of an owner. So Texoma FC itself dropping down to USL League 2, and then another Dallas, suburban Dallas entry potentially for USL League 1 with a different set of owners. So that this is what happens, right? And there will be a trail. So it happened in Charlotte, actually, in Nisa, a trail of unpaid bills, where then it was a shell game. They just Nisa just created a new legal entity. They were, I think, AC Stumptown, and then they became Stumptown AC or something.
Yes.
So that the vendors never got paid and the employees never got paid out of the bankrupt one. So these are the sorts of things that happen. They used to happen in USL also. Thankfully, there are more stringent requirements. But the frustration is USL can't seem to keep a consistent roster of teams from year to year. And I forgot to mention this part at the very beginning, Daniel. The schedule for 2026 was basically done in the USL Championship. There's still some things that have to be worked out in USL League 1, although I think they're almost there. But it was basically done in the USL Championship. They now have to pull it because they have to pull a team off the schedule, probably redo the conferences as a result. I guess if they're at 25 teams, maybe you can keep 13. Maybe Birmingham doesn't have to move to the West. You stick with 12 in the West and 13 in the. It just creates all kinds of problems, honestly.
Yeah, no, it does. It does. It was going to go from 25 to 26. Now they're down to 25, and then the question is, some of these expansion teams that are ready to come in 2027. Do you ask one of them that's going to be an Eastern Conference team? Can you start a year early? I don't know if it'll happen.
No,
and I'm only guessing here, but I don't think it will happen.
There are only 2 teams ready to go for 2026, which are Jacksonville. I was just up there a few days ago with them when they made their coaching announcement, and then Brooklyn. Those are the only 2, and I've been in contact with Brooklyn FC. They've started their scouting. They're going to begin to sign players very shortly. Those are the only 2 teams that are ready to go. I mean. Santa Barbara isn't ready. I don't know if they'll ever be ready. The Ozark team in Rogers, Arkansas, they're making progress, but it's 27. Buffalo, Peter Marlette, probably 27 also. So there isn't anyone. So they've got a problem. I don't know how they solve it. I mean, they're having an odd number of teams for next year.
Yeah, I know. It's just craziness. And I just don't understand how all of this is just falling apart so fast. But anyway, Kartik, I appreciate your time as always. And look, all we can do now is just sit back, watch what happens. We get to the USL Championship Cup final and see if we get a new champion. That's all we can do right now.
Yeah, Daniel, thank you. And thank you to everyone for contributing. Alex, thank you for asking a question. Alex Ashton, by the way, League 1 savant. I mean, just as good as it gets covering USL.
It really, really does. And Alex, thank you very much again for being on the show. Ladies and gentlemen, this will do it for tonight's Foolishness Fire American Soccer Show for Kartik Krishnaiyer. I'm Daniel Feuerstein. And as always, please enjoy your football. Have a good night. Take care. And talk to you tomorrow night. Bye-bye for now.